Boom, peace on earth. What's going on? Ethan Indigo Smith here, and I'm going to get straight into it. Saturnalia used to be a way that they would kind of flip the script of the entire rest of the calendar year, right exactly during the Christmas time that we currently celebrate, right at the darkest time of year, according to the solar flow, right? And one thing, it was celebrated for centuries over place and time, so it changed a lot, of course. But one thing that was common was that they had scapegoats, and that they uh, would sometimes harmlessly and sometimes to the absolution of individuals, they would be tricky, um, including uh, ostracizing people, and mobbing them, and also making people as if king for a day, and then smiting them when they're intoxicated. Another thing was being horrible to kids. A lot of uh, quite the elusive, horrible narratives about child killing and so forth has a lot to do with Saturnalia. Now, what's Christmas? That's celebrated at the same time period, essentially adopting the same uh, um, actual holiday, but in the monotheist terms, right? So the reason we celebrate Christmas, the birth of Christ, which of course has nothing to do with Saturnalia on itself, and has nothing to do with, of course, uh, Santa Claus, the cultural um, clause and attachment and aberration that is, you know, uh, along with the birth of Christ during the time period of Saturnalia. Now, so they made the celebration of Christ's birth during this time period so as to culturally shift the modality of how things were going. So instead of celebrating Saturn and the birth of the light starting anew, right? Where after this darkest time of year, the days start getting longer again and light starts coming back slowly but surely. So now we have they there have been a lot of different ways to celebrate the birth of Christ that we could get into, and how there's esoteric symbolism and even esoteric biological symbolism in the whole Christ consciousness rebirth celebration that could be in an internal lesson in the biblical story rather than the external presentation of the biblical story that is most commonly understood and put forth. Let's put that aside for a second, because the Saturnalia history leads up to the Santa Claus story. And Santa, just like the Saturnalia rituals, the Santa Claus story is all about the celebration of lying to children. And it's obvious to any thinkers that doing so does not instill a sense of magic in the child. It actually is the magic killer. It's the complete desensitization, and it ultimately installs the conclusion that there is no such thing as magic. There may not be any such thing as randomly kind people, and the whole entirety of the lessons that were instilled supposedly through that magical celebration of the Santa Claus story is crushed when inevitably the child realizes that they've been lied to. And who've they been lied to by? Everyone. Yes, certainly their parents, that's a pretty big deal, of course, right? Uh, but I hope I'm even recording now. Anyway, I'm sure I am. Okay, keep going like I am. Uh, so the celebration of lying to children is what it is on the adult side. On the kid side, it's cultural initiation into, postmodern Americana, wherever they may be. And they learn that they've been lied to. They learn also that they have to kind of accept lies as part of the game. And essentially, most frequently, the first thing that they're asked to do, that we are asked to do after we learn the fact of the matter of the Santa Claus story, is to lie ourselves. We need to now continue the lie that is the Santa Claus story for the younger people around us. So the only cultural initiation in the white Western world that's shared by all of us is the Santa Claus story. And it's broadly celebrated, whether or not it's really empowered the whole lie schematic in the story, and depending on how much it's put forth, that varies. But it's pretty much universal that even if they're going to school with other kids, even if their family is not celebrating the Santa Claus story, not Christmas, because that's different, right? And I notice people take great offense when I am critical of Santa Claus story as opposed to the celebration of the birth of Christ consciousness. But it's funny because the Christian scientists agree with me. So, oh, excuse me, that's pretty loud. But another segment of this story that's now really caused a rippling effect onto consciousness, because as I was going, not only do we realize our parents lied to us, which is quite shaking, but it may not have been the first time, and we begin to understand, regardless if it's the first time or not, that our parents often withhold information or outright lie to us for our own benefit and safety, and many different reasons that sometimes we like, mostly we don't like. But not only beyond that, we realize everyone lied to us. Everyone we ever interacted with on the street, every Santa that was begging for money, every Santa that we might have sat on and told what we wanted, every weatherman, and even the most powerful military institution on the planet, NORAD, takes part in the Santa Claus story. And so it's really unfathomable to a child the conspiracy behind lying to them. But it's something that they digest, and it's something that they embody and learn, and whether they can explain how it steered them or not, it's obvious to most people that it makes children, at least temporarily, hyper materialistic, right? And also beyond that, as an adult, I think If what I hear often enough in regards to, well, let's point to the conspiracy that's been exposed this week. We were all lied to in regards to the invasion of Afghanistan and its necessity. Excuse my lisp. And so before that, though, people couldn't or wouldn't believe that there would be so many people that would maintain the lie, and if you know, just like kids have discussions essentially in more beetle bop young persons linguist capabilities and thought capability. Yeah, no, there's no way everyone lied to me. I saw the weatherman was talking about Santa and the reindeer last night. No, you've been lied to. Everyone lied to you, and it was a generations long concerted effort long before you were born to lie to you. Even everyone, not just you. So don't take it personal. No, I don't believe you because NORAD even. No, I mean mom, dad. You say yeah, okay, but I saw NORAD, the military. Why would the military lie? So all these things come into play. The psychological effects of the Santa Claus story is what I call Santa Claus syndrome, and it is akin to in the celebration of Saturnalia. They would crush people. The Santa Claus story is the consciousness crusher, and it makes people completely apathetic to lies and violence and anything conspiratorial that government, corporate, religious institutions may be operating within their frame of reference or even their immediate periphery. They completely will be apathetic to situations of the most serious consequence because they want a gift. Right? They don't want to be ostracized too, because what happens to little Timmy when he says, "You know what? I'm completely angry and you're asking me to lie to little Susie?" Well, guess what? Susie, Santa's not real. And then everyone gets upset with him. What's the lesson in that? To be apathetic. The Santa Claus syndrome, coordinated or accidental, stems on down the line from 2000 some years ago when they would celebrate Saturnalia, and which was a total flipping of the script and how people ought to perceive into being where it is today, a flipping of the script in a much more covert and consciousness manner rather than the overt horrible manner that they once did it. But it was still to influence consciousness, right? Just like don't forget, government means control the mind, right? So when you know that, you know how they operate. Whether it's a whatever institution, they always want to control the mind. And I'll leave the ending here now on that, and I hope if you have an extra couple of bucks, you'll check out my book for more. A Holiday Hazing, Santa Claus Syndrome. I believe it's quite enjoyable and provocative. And if you want to have a great discussion at your Christmas dinner this year, bring up Santa Claus Syndrome and see what happens. Because if they act in an emotive way where they're ignoring information, they probably have Santa Claus Syndrome stage 5. So that's it, folks. I'll leave you with my little scroll. Hey, it's all good. It's all good. All right. Calm down.